Welcome to Mississippi Happenings. My name is David Oles, and I'm here with my co-host, Jim Newman. Jim, say hello.
Hello.
Hey, Jim, what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of do a recap of some of our episodes. This will be our 17th episode. We have had 19 guests to join us, and we have talked a lot about a lot of things, a lot of very important things, both for Mississippi and in Mississippi, but also within our nation. But Jim, I got a question, and for our listeners and our viewers, this is just us, so it's just a conversation between Jim and I. And Jim, tell me your thoughts on Elon Musk and his spaceship. Tell me about that, bud.
I knew you were going to ask about that. Well, he's got an awfully good contract with NASA to put a rocket up that will take astronauts to Mars. And he's had 4 in a row that have blown up.
Wow.
Yesterday morning, about 2 a.m., they did a launch pad test, and it just blew to smithereens. I mean, literally just blew up on the launch pad. It was a spectacular rocket show. And it strikes me as maybe having some priorities in the wrong place, given what's going on in the United States at this particular time. I know that the spaceship that's been used to go up to the moon,
space station,
and then to the space station, has been very successful. And a lot of good things have come out of the space station. And we've had international cooperation. We've had Russians, we've had Frenchmen, I think we've had a Chinese person from China, all astronauts. So I think that's been a very good thing. And a lot of good scientific stuff has come out of that. But I don't know. I'm just guessing that rocket ship had to have cost, well, $1 billion. I mean, we've got fighter jets and bombers that cost somewhere between 50 and 100 million each. I've got to feel that rocket ship probably cost $500,000 to $1 billion, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, its goal is to go to Mars. Yet here we are cutting Medicaid, cutting veterans' benefits and access to health care, cutting SNAP, talking about reducing Social Security, potentially even cutting benefits that our senior citizens are getting, eliminating the education department. All of this in the name of cost cutting. And why are we doing the cost cutting? So that we can continue to have a beneficial tax program for those that are extremely wealthy. And all of that brings me back around to saying, I think we got some of our priorities as a country in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not opposed to going to Mars, but I think there are some things that are a heck of a lot more important right now. And we really ought to be concentrating on remedying those situations. And we can still keep the Mars project out there as something we want to accomplish, but we don't need to accomplish it on the backs of a lot of people that don't have the money.
Understood. Understood. And a couple of things that we've talked about, and you just brought it up, the elimination of the Department of Education. And we know in Mississippi, we've had a chance to talk to Erica Jones with the MAE. We've had a chance to talk to Nancy Loom, uh, and what taken away between the school vouchers and money just simply going to the private schools and the charter schools, it's been a major effect on the state of Mississippi. We talked about $170 million that the state of Mississippi lost because of Linda McMahon, and she pulled back on the program, and it cost a lot of our rural school districts lost a lot of money. Do you recall that conversation, Jim?
Absolutely. That was, I think that was one of the best interviews we've had regarding education. I've always been amazed at our legislature, who continues to talk about how education is so important and the brain drain and all of this goes along the line. And yet, the number one priority, the number one bill every year in the legislature is not education. I did notice today or yesterday, maybe a Mississippi Today article that somebody was going to be introducing a bill to raise teacher salaries, and I've forgotten what the other issue was, but it had to do with education. And my thought is, if our future is in our children and grandchildren, why aren't we putting the money there first if it's that important?
Uh, I agree with you, and in that those episodes, we did applaud Philip Birchfield and Lance Evans. They both had comments in Mississippi Today article trying to get Linda McMahon to honor the government's commitment to Mississippi schools. We tried to get both of them to join us, and we never heard back from either one of them. And we talk about a lot of subjects, but we talk about the kitchen table issues that affects everybody, regardless of your political persuasion. We all have, we all love our kids. We love our grandkids. We love kids, and we know the importance of education. But it seems like that's always been kind of at the bottom of the list of things that our lawmakers really want to discuss. So, but Jim?
You just have to look at their record, and the record speaks for itself, where Mississippi thinks education should be. They have
And we
yet,
know that. Go ahead.
what, 2 years? 2 years, I believe, they have fully funded the educational program. Just 2 years since it came into effect in what, the 90s?
It was matter of fact, it was the 80s, and they had the one formula, and they recently got rid of that formula to make sure. Well, let me rephrase that. They had one formula that they said nobody could understand, so they changed it to another formula that even they could not understand, and that was from an article also from Mississippi Today. So it seems to be a little bit of bait and switch when it comes to the money that really goes to our public schools.
Yes. And that's another issue with me is that the money the money for education is allocated to the based on the pupil. The student goes to public school and the state pays X number of dollars for that student and all the students in that county. If he doesn't go to that school and he goes to a charter school, the money follows him to the charter school, which deletes the total amount of money available to the public schools to provide excellent education. Now, this doesn't happen in Oxford or Hattiesburg, excuse me, or Lee or Tupelo in our basically our largest cities, because there is a sufficient amount of tax base that the taxes are levied and the cities supplement the state funding so that we pay our teachers better and facilities are better. I remember not too many years back when Tupelo decided to put in an artificial football field, and it was, I think, it's $1 million. And
Uh-huh.
it didn't take them any time at all to raise the $1 million. Not that that was wrong. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the large cities are able to supplement the per student money spent. Where it's hurting us is in our rural areas that do not have the tax base. And there's no way to do it. So the schools suffer. How do they suffer? Well, maybe they don't get the best and brightest teachers. Maybe they don't have the best facilities. Maybe they don't offer as many courses. I'm pretty sure that a lot of rural schools don't offer French and Spanish. And I'm not sure whether, I think Tupelo may offer another one. I'm not sure. But what a school can offer to a student in an educational situation as far as the opportunity for education is limited by how many teachers they can hire, and those teachers have to fulfill the requirements, and anything extra like foreign languages or whatever doesn't get included.
And it was interesting when we talked to Jack Reed Jr., the history behind Mississippi going from a segregated school district and then to a integrated district, but it took them And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it took them about 16 years from the time the government said, yes, we are going to integrate the schools. I don't remember the case. It took that long, took 16 years from the time the government said it, in the late 60s until the early 70s when it finally happened in Mississippi. It was interesting when we talked to Jack Reed Jr. And how his father was involved in getting it done in Mississippi.
That was another extremely wonderful interview. I really enjoyed hearing the stories about Jack Reed Sr. I did
Yes.
not get to Tupelo in time to be really that knowledgeable. Jack Reed Sr., I met, we were friends. He would recognize me, we would talk, but I never got to sit down with him and ask him those questions. And I really regret having not done that. And that's one of the things that I enjoy doing with our podcasts, because it was because of that interview. We then went to an interview with Lovey West and Virginia Tolliver.
Yes.
Two black women, extremely intelligent, came from humble beginnings.
Very successful, both of them.
Rose to the top, and in spite of things, but it was just good to hear those stories. And Mississippi is surrounded with those stories and people who have done those things. I know over in the Delta, there was a saying that the road to success was whatever it is, Highway 59 North. In other words, get out of the Delta.
51? Go ahead.
No, I don't know what the highway was.
Okay.
What's the main highway there north?
I think it's Highway 51.
51, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that I'd heard that a number of times, that in the Delta, the road to success, if you didn't own a plantation, was Highway 51 North. And a lot of people went north. Went to Chicago and to St. Louis and to Memphis. Good friend of mine, Jim Casey, went to Carbondale, Illinois, where he was very successful and became principal and superintendent. So I hope we continue those efforts in finding people with interesting histories, because history in our school system is about to be not taught nearly as well as it has been. I don't know whether it was this morning's newspaper or yesterday's newspaper. I said that the state school board has decided to do away with the history test. Well, if you're going to do away with the history test, how much effort are you going to put into teaching the kids history?
Good point.
And it seems to me that might just be a result of the DEI situation, the diversity, inclusion, and equity. Good, because I've heard a couple of professors, and you have too at Ole Miss, talk about, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And I can't talk about the Civil War. I can't talk about slavery. I can't talk about. That's the history. And you cannot rewrite history. It's there. You can't change the facts. Read the first Mississippi Constitution. I don't know the exact words, but it's to the effect that blacks are more able to work in the hot sun than whites. So slavery's okay.
There was, yeah, a lot of those
I mean,
things, just absurd.
it is
And
absurd. And if our children aren't learning the history of Mississippi, the actual history of Mississippi, how are we teaching them to respect and treat others like they would like to be treated?
yeah, I'm of the opinion, and this is my opinion, that with the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion, personally, I think that's a way for us to get back to segregation. And Jim, that scares the hell out of me. It's just it's frightening, and it's how we as a nation have lost our way and have lost our compassion and our understanding of people. And you're absolutely right. Uh, the history books is thrown out. Now, just because I know of slavery, and just because it was the white plantation owners that were doing that had the slaves, were beating the slaves, and that has no. I mean, how do I put this? That's history. It doesn't make me feel any less of a person because of who I am, but some of the far radical right, they want to say, well, that's make the Caucasian, and I like the term Caucasian better than white, but that makes the white person feel ashamed of their history, and which makes no sense to me. History is history. You can't change it.
Well, you can't change it. And when you are racist
Yes.
and you treat other races with less dignity than you treat the Caucasians, you are saying that you believe in slavery.
And we've had some good conversations also, because we have to talk about these things, because it goes back. It's not going to be taught in the school. As you said, it's good to hear the stories. We're just two old white men. I mean, let's face it. And I am ashamed. I only learned about Juneteenth, which was June the 19th. I only learned about that about 4 years ago, uh, which is I'm ashamed to say it, but it wasn't taught in my history books. I had to learn that from other people, and yes, it's great that we all need to be celebrating Juneteenth or June 19th.
It's some of the things, one of the things that I've recently discovered, uh, and I'm not quite sure where I read it, but in Mississippi, the governor has his Confederate Day.
Yes.
Well, that's a state holiday. But I recently have learned that not every municipality has to celebrate that holiday. They cannot have it. and just have it as a regular work day and make Juneteenth or that weekend the holiday.
Okay.
So how do you go about getting that done? You got to go to your city council or city alderman and get a petition and get that done. So there are opportunities out there. I mean, I was surprised to hear it. I don't know how that got past the legislature. Somebody wasn't paying attention, but thank goodness they weren't.
Slid it in.
It
Good.
gives us an opportunity to make right something that I think is wrong.
Yeah. But, we've talked to Representative uh, Robert, excuse me, Representative Justice Gibbs, and we've talked to Senator Robert Johnson, and they had some great stories to tell us during the 2025 legislative session. They had some good stories about that too. And the elimination of primarily, yes, public education again, but also the elimination of the state income tax and
Right.
how we are, it's going to save the average Mississippian about $44. On the poor end, you know, the poor, it's going to save them $1, $2, $3, $4. But on the millionaires and the people with the money, it's going to save them about $40,000. But we all will lose a lot of services, in my opinion.
I think that's one of the things that brought you and I together on this podcast is that what we're trying to do is bring out issues that are not generally talked about in the open, in the legislature, or on the editorial pages of our newspapers. And as a result, things go on and happen, and we're all surprised by it. And it's too late to do anything about. And you mentioned kitchen table issues.
Yes.
One of the things that Jack Reed Sr. said that will stick with me forever is what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House.
Absolutely.
And it is so true. What happens in your house, if you are not involved, if you're not trying to get educated on the political issues, if you're not out promoting or protesting or whatever you want to call it, the fact that we in Mississippi do not have the right for an initiative petition because the legislature won't rewrite the Constitution so that instead of having 5 congressional districts, we have 4, and then they could pass an initiative petition. But they're not interested in doing that. That's a kitchen table issue.
Yes.
Healthcare, cuts in Medicaid, the lack of Medicaid expansion. And the one thing that I always get upset about is they want people to have to work to get Medicaid. They already have to work. If you're able-bodied, you've got to do 20 hours a week, 20 hours a month, I believe. Most people on Medicaid cannot work. That's why they're on Medicaid. They don't want to be on Medicaid. And when you are not involved, You don't realize that most of the nursing homes are only able to survive because their patients are on Medicaid. Now, if they cut Medicaid enough, grandma's going to be out on the street because the nursing homes are for profit. These are things
And you look
that,
at the
go ahead.
and you look at the jails, and we do want to. We're trying to get someone scheduled to talk about their jail system, and their jails are for profit. That, to me, that's just absurd. Jails for profit.
Yes, the article yesterday, Representative Curry, State Representative Curry was over at Parchman. She's a nurse. She saw a man, 6'2", who weighed 115 pounds. He had lost the weight because he wasn't getting the medication he needed. But it was not something that he couldn't get. They just weren't giving it to him. She saw another person there who had, I think, ammonia in his blood, or had something to do with ammonia in his blood. But that was another instance that could be taken care of. And the result was that he had a 5-year sentence, but because of what he had contracted, he was given 3 months to live. So you go from a 5-year sentence to 3 months to live. We're going to try to get Representative Curry on a podcast.
I would love to hear her story.
It disturbs me greatly when we don't treat incarcerated people with dignity. I don't care what they've done. When you put them in jail, we need to feed them, clothe them, and take care of their medical needs. I think that's just that's the minimum that we should be doing. It's enough that they're not running around in society again, but they certainly should not be dying for lack of health care.
I agree with you there, and we know that there are those that strictly don't care about the incarcerated. On the other side of the coin, well, they shouldn't have done whatever they did anyway. They shouldn't have been, whatever they got sent to jail for. It's like the opposite of the coin is, well, they deserved it. Well, that's wrong. They don't deserve to die in jail because of lack of health care. That's just not who we are as human beings and as compassionate people that we need to be.
Well, and further proof of the jails is somebody can be picked up, taken to jail for drunk driving or whatever, and they may sit there for 6 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years, because they don't have the money to make bail. And they don't have an attorney who's going to process it and cause it to happen. So we wonder why we have a growing population that thinks that the way to solve problems is through guns and not at the ballot box.
Yeah, we could spend days talking about that, couldn't we?
Oh my gosh, 29,000 voters in Tupelo, and in the mayoral election, less than 5,000 decided who the mayor was going to be.
I remember talking to Dr. Deborah Williams from DeSoto County. She is the chairwoman of the executive committee of the Democrats in DeSoto County. And, there was a plea for poll workers. And also, she also touched on, yes, getting out the vote and what a lot of people term is GOTV, get out the vote, which was, which kind of times ties into a little bit of uh, what we talked to Jamie and to Mary Jane from Indivisible Northeast Mississippi and political activism. And that was a fun episode. They were a lot of fun.
They were. That was a good one. And a few days later, they had a hands off or no kings,
No
no
kings.
kings here in Tupelo, Oxford, Jackson, Gulfport, Biloxi. I think there were 7 or 8 cities in the state of
Fernando was one of
Mississippi
them.
that did the no kings, and that brought a lot of attention. Got a lot of coverage, and it wasn't just in Mississippi. 2,100 cities had no kings protests, and the estimate is that there were 5 million people showed up in all cities around the country to protest what's happening with our government for various things.
And we've been very fortunate to have the retired Rear Admiral Jamie Barnett to talk about, the international issues that we have, both with the international diplomacy and also cybersecurity. And this, all of the people we talked about, they're all that we mentioned, they all are experts in their field. They have firsthand knowledge of this. But some of the stuff that Jamie Barnett talked about was kind of frightening. He also has a Substack called Opinion Aided, which is opinion aided by facts. And it was it was frightening, some of the things that he was talking about of what how we are losing our foothold as the world's leader, and we're letting other countries take over because of the current administration and their lack of what's the word I'm looking for? I guess for their imperialism, or because it's all about America, and but it's America is a big part of the world and has been a leader in the world for decades, and I guess ever since the First or the Second World War. I'm not a history teacher or historian, but it seems that we're losing that, and that was kind of frightening. And that came from Jamie Barnett.
Yes, and if you think about it, everything he talked about, cybersecurity and the number of ships the Navy has, things like that.
Yeah.
Just remember that Ingalls Shipyard on the Gulf Coast is one of the largest employers in the state. And then when you find out that the United States as a country builds, I think my memory's right, 2 warships a year is what we're turning out to join the fleet, while the Russians or the Chinese are turning out something like 20. It was either
Those
20 or
numbers sound
200.
familiar. I don't remember offhand, but
What was it, David? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but that's close.
Yeah, it was just really amazing. And there's, people don't realize that we're building ships in Mississippi, high technology ships. My gosh, right here in Tupelo, we've got a company that builds the propulsion system that goes on an aircraft carrier that propels that jet off the deck. The technology is fabulous, and it requires a workforce that's educated. And here we go. That circle's coming back around, isn't it? An educated workforce.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about the issues in Mississippi, but um, there's wonderful things about Mississippi. I grew up in Tennessee, just across the state line.
I'm sorry.
And and then you grew up. Where did you grow up, by the way?
I haven't grown up. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Jim, what are you going to be when you grow up? That type deal.
I'll probably be a Santa Claus
That'll work.
with a pot and a bell at Christmas.
Good. But
I grew up in Kansas City.
Yeah. And so we live in Mississippi. I've been here since 72 in Mississippi, and you've been here since the 80s? When did you move? 78. Okay. We love Mississippi. We really do.
Yes.
There's a lot of great things, but also we do try to bring out the issues so we can address these issues. And yes, we are reaching out, and we do want to hear from, Republicans. We want to hear from independents. We want to hear from progressive. We want to hear from Democrats, because we want the discussion. We are not afraid of discussions. We do very respectful, interviews. I've seen some that are on Mississippi Public Broadcasting, which I'm thinking, I don't know if I'd want to have a conversation with some of those interviewers, but that's a whole different thing. But, we do want to discuss those issues. And we as a nation have got to come back together again. There is middle ground. There is a gray side. It's not all the way to the left or all the way to the right. We've got to meet somewhere in the middle, because we all have the same goals. We all want, health care. We all want, good roads. We all want to have good education. We all want good hospitals, good doctors. We want an educated workforce. But it seems the difference is how we go about it. And that's where we've got to come together.
And most of these issues, when you get right down to it, are not Republican or Democrat.
Absolutely.
They're issues that affect every one of us every day of our lives. And unless everybody comes together and talks to each other and comes to an agreement, we don't really move forward. One of the things that the Minnesota senator that was killed, I can't think of her name right now. Everybody I've heard talk about her, that knew her, said that she was the absolute best person ever to get both sides to come together and sit down and hammer out an issue that was so critical to Minnesota. And I have not heard exactly what that issue was, but that's what we've got to do. Yes. And it's very hard to do when one side says, I'm right, you're wrong, and the other side says, no, you're right, I'm right, and you're wrong. Nobody's right all the time, and nobody's wrong all the time. But we need to get together and start talking to get each other. And that's what I hope we're trying to do with this podcast, is bring people together so that we can talk about the various issues and see their side of it and get an education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do want to thank we have several sponsors. We do appreciate them. Yes, we look for more sponsors.
Yes, we've got too few.
Yes. We want more subscribers. We ask that you subscribe. This broadcast, this podcast is no charge. It is free for you to view it or for you to listen to it, however you do. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, we would love to hear from you, and you can email us at mshappenings, the number one, at gmail.com. That's mshappenings, the number one, at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We want to hear, things that you want to talk about, things that you like that we said, and things that you disagreed with what we said. And we do want to talk to local and state elected officials and that can share some information to us. We do want to educate our viewers and our listening. Jim, you got anything you want to end us with? Bring us home, bring it home, or what are we?
Yes, I would like to see legislators from both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
Maybe a couple of them come together on the podcast and let's just have a conversation.
Yes.
And see where it goes. The legislature will reconvene next January. And now is the time for citizens to be talking to their legislators, letting them know what is of interest to them as far as legislation is concerned, or what's important. But we got a good sized state here, a little less than 3 million people. And I can promise you everybody's got an opinion, and we're not always going to agree. But I think the time has come for us to start to at least agree on the things that we do agree on and move forward on those. And we can work on the things that we disagree on. But let's get together and agree on the important things and move forward in Mississippi.
One last thing, Jim, I've got to ask you. You seem to be your arm seems to be in a sling. What happened, buddy?
Oh,
She pushed you down, didn't she?
No.
Someone pushed you down.
No, a dog got in my way. I was taking steps backward, and a dog
Yeah.
got in my way, and I went down, fell on my
No.
shoulder last Saturday. Hurt an awful lot. Thought I'd just done some tissue damage, maybe a
Yeah.
ligament or two or something. Went to the doctor on Monday and found out that I'd fractured the humerus bone, which is the bone that runs between your shoulder and your elbow. And
Yikes.
they didn't want to do any surgery. They said that putting it in a sling for 3 weeks, everything that was fractured was in proper alignment. And they're hoping that 3 or 4 or 5 weeks we'll get it cured and I'll be fine.
Good.
Thank you
Well,
for
good luck
asking.
with that. Well, good
But I
luck
tell
with
you,
that.
it has given me a new perspective. If you, I don't know how you might view handicapped people, but I'm here to tell you, I've got a new perspective and respect for handicapped people. When you only have one arm, try to get your pants on, try to brush your teeth, try to fix dinner, just try to do the things you normally do, and you'll find
Uh-huh.
out that you cannot do it. And like I said, I've gained a real healthy respect for those that are not as fortunate as I have been throughout my life to have everything work.
But to all of our listeners and our viewers, we do appreciate you. You are very important. Please share this with your friends. We'd love to hear from all of you. And as always, may we never be indifferent to the suffering of others. Thank you.